Hiya! Dungeon 2 of the dungeon reviews. This is still, again, without the class changes. The class changes happened after this. But on this one, we're going into the Dawnbreaker. And, oh boy! This one I actually have some opinions on. The other one was kind of just a short dungeon. That was the Priory. So that was just a really short dungeon. Now, this one was... I don't know if people are gonna like this one. I thought it was kind of okay. I thought it was kind of cool. But in general, I don't know. I don't know if people like it. We tried going out of bounds here to see what would happen, but it's all walled off. So the Dawnbreaker is this big ship. And we get some mobs here. Now, this is the first thing that I gotta talk about because this sucks. These mobs on the side, they auto-respawn. Which means that you can't use these for count. They're not going to give any count. Because as you kill them, they just kind of pop up. And it's meant to be like, oh, this huge battle. But it's really unclear with, like, as from a regular standpoint of, like, your first time going into the dungeon, it's insanely unclear what exactly you should be kind of going for in terms of, like, pulling count. So I assume that, like, on the first week or so of the dungeon being live, a lot of people are just going to pull everything, and then it's going to be either a disaster, people aren't going to know where to go, but I don't know. I would prefer if these guys were just, like, not attackable at all, but the fact that they're attackable makes it so that, like, you can pull them in with AoE effects, and, like, I don't know. It's just really weird that these are attackable. I don't really like that. But it is what it is. It also is weird because these guards block you at the start of the dungeon, right? If you remember at the start of the dungeon here, when we were trying to get out of bounds, there was these guys. And these guys stop you from going up. Like, you can't walk past them. They block you off. But then later on, you know, you do this pack, and then you have to go up the stairs past the guards. Which, like, it just felt weird running it, man. Like, I'm sure that after, like, doing it 3 or 4 times, you're like, oh, I know where to go. But it feels so weird, and on the first run through, it was whack. It felt real whack. But regardless, we went up onto the boat, and it's more of the same. I had to take pictures. I was trying to go out of bounds, and I actually do manage to go out of bounds, which is hilarious. So they fight all of the mobs up on the ship, and the ship leaves. It just goes, which means I was on camera duty. I was on taking picture duty. But yeah, there's no way up. Now they tell me that it was basically just spawning trash, and the crystal turns purple. It just burns, right? That yellow crystal at the start that we saw from the Priory dungeon, it just burns purple. And so all of the Nerubians show up, all of the cultists show up, and you basically just kill mobs up there. It's not anything crazy. Meanwhile, I'm running down here. I'm exploring. I'm having the time of my life. That is a working mailbox. That's kind of fun. You're not supposed to be here. But, yeah. Eventually, the crystal burns, and it gives you a debuff for being out of bounds. And, yeah, this just instantly kills you. Which brings us to the mechanic of... I spoiled it. Brings you to the mechanic of the dungeon. There's going to be these light keepers, lamp lighters, whatever. And they're going to spawn light. And using the light, you get to dragon ride. And so these light orbs give you a stamina. What is it called? I forget what the resource is called. The little orbs. Obviously, great bug. I mounted up, tried to fly back, and it just tossed me off. You can only do this while midair, apparently. The whole thing is incredibly buggy, and it is a dragon riding dungeon, which is going to suck. Feel bad. Then I get bug splatted, and I load back in, and all my keybounds get screwed. It's just alpha things. So that's fun. You basically just gotta do the boat here. There's a little boat, and then it spawns a bomb. You press the bomb, and then you go back to your main boat. So do the Nerubians, little pack, dragon ride, kill, spawn the bomb, blow up the ship, move on. All right, so there's the bomb, and then we fly away. And back on the main boat, we then have a boss fight. Now, I actually kind of like this boss fight, but it is, again, dragon riding boss fight, so it can't be that impressive. There are forced downtimes on this, so as we take pictures and stuff. This is just your simple caster, kind of don't stand in the circles. And here it says take flight, and if I turn around, you'll see this guy is you cannot be anywhere near. And then once he pops, you just go back in. And I think visually it just looks really cool. Like having a fight on a boat where this dude is just blowing up the entire boat. I mean, doing this fight and seeing this huge purple orb felt incredible. Like, just as a thematic thing, it felt insanely cool. But again, you were dragon riding, so But it is what it is. I thought it was kind of fine. These big portals kind of suck for melee uptime, but it wasn't anything crazy. Pretty stock standard. He does it one more time, I believe, when he gets low. I think you get him to 1 HP. Yeah, so here's the 1 HP, and it's the last blow up. And yeah. Boss dead. Then there's a bunch of RP that gets forced on you a little bit. So you see that it's starting to light up the area here, the city underneath us. So this wasn't where I was. I was off to the left here. But they start lighting up the city. You can't actually go down until the lamplighters all ignite the city. But you land, you dragon ride, you land, you get your orbs. And then you gotta work your way through, and the boss is constantly patrolling through this town. So we kill a couple packs, and there you see the boss. Anubikaj, whatever. Weird names. And this boss just patrols around the city, and this can really mess up your day. We tried LOSing into the room, and the boss got pulled, and yeah, this is doomed. So in general, stay near the light. Then you gotta do the same thing as before, where in the previous dungeon, I mean, where you gotta go do some objectives. So you see on the mini map up here, there's a couple of points that we gotta get to. So is what it is. More mini boss mini game. So here we got a mini boss, which let me see if I can. Yeah. So there's this big radiating effect. All these mini bosses, all these lieutenants have the mechanics of the boss, and if you don't kill them, the boss mechanics go insane, right? So it's pretty much the same thing as the Priory. It's the same thing as Court of Stars. Kill the lieutenants, kill the boss. Once we killed the lieutenants and we did the boss, this boss was pretty much a joke. Even with pulling a pack of mobs in, this was pretty manageable. So run around, kill lieutenants, then you go back up on your ship, and you get to the final boss, which you pull this attendant, and you get Big Boy. Big scary boy. Now this was bugged when we tested it. I don't think they ever fixed it, but it is also not a boss that I enjoy too much. So as you see here, when we're pulling him and we're doing damage, he has an insane amount of HP. To the point where what you're doing here doesn't really matter. You just gotta pick up these bombs and make him eat the bombs. You put the bombs in front of him, he just eats them. And that's what's doing all of the damage here. We get him to 50%. The damage you deal doesn't really matter from what we could tell. And they spawn so many of these bombs. Just an insane amount of bombs. That the bombs are like 98% of the damage you deal to this guy. Anyways, he then flies away, and so we get a Lightbringer, and we gotta follow this boat around. This boat saves us from the darkness. Except that this boat sucks. And we crash again. But, yeah, this boat sucks, and we get crashed, and that's it. That's the end of the dungeon. Because the fight's bugged, and there's nothing to do about that. So, is what it is. This dungeon felt really short as well, same as the Priory, but the problem with this one is that it's a lot of RP and a lot of dragon riding, and the city felt really janky. Like, all of this time we spent in the city killing these mini-bosses felt real jank. I don't know if we just suck. It's possible that our pathing just sucks because it's the first time doing the dungeon. But all of the dragon riding was pretty janky. Having to follow the boat in the last boss was pretty bad. All the forced RP of, like, fly to a boat, kill it, fly back. Then the guy goes, "Oh, you've done it! You've destroyed the boat! Oh, go to the next one!" Like, waiting for the boat to fly. At the start of the dungeon, you get on the boat, then you gotta wait for it to fly, and then you gotta watch the crystal turn. It's really visually stunning, watching the crystal turn and all that, but in terms of, like, if you need to do this dungeon in Mythic Plus 15 times in a row, like, if you're farming this for, like, a best-in-slot trinket, it's gonna get old pretty quickly. It's gonna suck pretty bad. It's, you know, the same RP over and over and over, and, like, we've seen that before in other dungeons, where having the RP just makes the dungeon feel pretty stale. So on, like, a first run-through, it felt pretty good, just RP-wise, but you could basically instantly tell that it was not going to be anything you're going to want to do for like 10, 12, 15 times. Now, similar to the Priory, there's a lot of equal health pulls, but this one on the boat especially, let me see. So on the boat here, in the boat tech, let me just... So on the boat, you could see that there's these web mages. These are a little bit bigger health, but everything else seemed pretty similar sized. Now, the plus side to this one is when you're in the city, the lieutenants you often pull with packs. So that's a big caustic spatter thing. So like here you see this glowy one here is a lieutenant, and there's mobs around it. This was kind of true every single time. So this might be a better caustic dungeon. But I guess we'll just have to see, you know? I'm not really too concerned about the balance right now, but just based on the flow, it was pretty stop and start. There were some bigger health mobs, obviously lieutenants again for the second boss. But yeah, in general, it was okay. If the dragon riding is loosened a little bit and isn't so RP heavy, I think this dungeon would be good. Now, if the RP is static and forced and there's no, like, quicker RP option for Mythic Plus, it's going to be pretty janky. But they've sped up RP in Mythic Plus before, so hopefully they can find a way to do that again. And anyways, that was the Dawnbreaker. Yeah, there's not really much to say. The next two dungeons have the class changes, so I'll be talking about those a little bit as well. Anyways, bye.